Russian man like inside the dark, call me Bill Snatcher. Just the brother for the rapture. I hang live, holding on strong, hard to capture. Extravagant, resurrect the track and it's militant. And I react like a garden and start killing. It's manifesting. The God's work like appliances, dealing in my sight like a lot.
Before we go any further, just want to say today's video is going to be brought to you by Fandomion. If you want to buy some really awesome anime merch from My Hero Academia, Attack on Titan, and Haiku, and so many other anime, I recommend using my link in the description box to check them out. And there's free worldwide shipping on orders over $39. You'll also get an additional 5% off using my promo code down below. For any of you guys who might be interested or on the fence, I highly recommend checking out the website. Pay attention to the size chart. That'll be the biggest thing I would tell you guys. But with that being said, though, let's jump back into today's video. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another discussion for Boruto Naruto Next Generations, the manga. And for anime only fans, this is the time of the month where a lot of the content that we talk about here on the channel is me spoiler heavy, so I do thank you for your support. However, if you're still here, I'm assuming you've already hit the like button, because you know the drill by now. Hitting the like button is an easy way to make Himawari smile, and after everything that's happened in the Boruto manga recently, Himawari don't just need 1 like or 2 likes. Himawari needs all the likes, because Himawari is crying after what happened to Boruto. So with that being said, let's get right into the actual discussion. So this was suggested to me to talk about over on my Patreon. So I got a DM immediately after the chapter came out, like after it became 100% official that Kawaki was smoking that Boruto pack. The first DM I get in the Patreon is, hey man, do you think that Boruto's Jougan is going to be the way that he's going to be able to revive? And I know everybody's looking for like 9,000 different ways to save Boruto. And before I say whether or not I think that this is likely or unlikely, I will say that this was actually somewhat creative in what was suggested to me. So the suggestion is based off the fact that the Otsutsuki appear to be always linked to whatever dojutsu we see in the Naruto universe, whether it be the Sharingan, Byakugan, Rinnegan. The Otsutsuki always are the common denominator for this. And given that Boruto's Jougan translates into pure eye, is it possible that the pure eye has something similar to the Rinne rebirth, to where Boruto will be able to revive himself? And if he's able to awaken that Jougan due to death, if that's a way to bring Boruto back. And I will say, just based off the fact that that eye, according to the animator for the Boruto anime, the one that worked on episode 65, when he did a blog back in 2017, he said that when it came to Boruto's Karma Seal, which we didn't have the name for, I don't believe at the time, and when it came to Boruto's Eye, which they had a provisional title for it called Jougan, they were still figuring out a lot of the details for it. They just want to do a drastic departure from what we had previously seen Boruto with in Boruto Naruto the movie, and they were still working out some of the kinks. Nowhere in those notes that he gave us for the Jougan did we see something for revival. However, I don't rule it out just based on the fact that in the anime, one of the things that we were told is that that is a ancient eye that scares even members of the Otsutsuki clan. And I will say this right here, given that Boruto's manga in chapter 1 adapted everything in the anime frame by frame, when the anime got a hold to chapter 1, it was frame by frame, line by line. I don't rule out the fact that we could possibly see this eye actually show up. And what I like about this is if we do go this route, it stops us from having to use any of the break glass in case of emergency options. And I'm working on a separate video breaking down all of the ways that we know officially somebody can come back from the dead, because there are a lot of Boruto fans who are panicking right now. But I will say that this is the one way you can avoid having to have somebody give their life in order to bring Boruto back, because right now that's the only way you can bring this dude back. I know people think that Boruto is going to be able to regenerate the injury and everything. I think people are forgetting the fact that Amado did specifically state that you can kill a vessel as long as that vessel isn't at 100% Otsutsukification with the karma. If they're at 100%, the Otsutsuki will get revived using that body. Right now, Boruto's not at 100%. So that is something that it was always on the table. It made sense that they use it. But I do think from a narrative perspective, if we go the route of the Jougan and it brings Boruto back to life, I think that that is a good way to introduce into the story. Because when it comes to people looking forward to the time skip, the 3 questions that are always at the tip of everybody's tongue is, why did Boruto and Kawaki split? The second question that people have is, how did Boruto get his scar? And then the third question people have is, why hasn't the Jougan showed up in the manga? Boruto clearly had it in chapter 1. Why don't we see it? I think that is a good way to actually do it. And if you go this route and Boruto comes back to death, because you have this character Ada, the one who is written to be the person that knows everything that happens in the world and has all of this information, you can actually use Ada as a way to give exposition, because Code's gonna be right there on the battlefield. Code's gonna notice like, oh crap, his eye looks different. What in the world just happened here? Ada will be able to give the information like, oh, this is the Jougan, this eye does X, Y, and Z. This is why Momoshiki chose him. Ada should be able to give all those answers. And I do like that right there, because it allows us to get a more reliable narrator than Amato, because with Amato practices selective honesty from the 48 laws of power. He only gives you just enough information to make himself be irreplaceable to you. He doesn't tell you everything you need to know right then and there. Ada does that to an extent, but with Amato, because of how much information he gives and because of how he was acting in that interrogation room where he's openly laughing, and even Sasuke at the time was saying there are holes in your story, and Sasuke was actively looking to poke holes in it, Amato had a clear reason to be lying and to keep his cards close to the chest. You could use Ada as an opportunity to give the full story, because right now Ada has no reason to lie to Code about what that eye is. And by extension, Ada would have no reason to lie to us as the readers. So I think that having Ada be that character that gives that exposition, that would make a lot of sense. And if you look at it from a storytelling perspective, if everybody is there that's seeing that eye and they bring it up and Amato tells us something different than Ada, then that's when you catch Amato's hand in the cookie jar, because now you have the situation of he was already being painted as being an unreliable narrator. Now you've got the man caught in 4K right now. So I do think that that is something that is plausible from a storytelling perspective of kind of connecting all of the dots. One of the things that I personally had always felt was that we're just going to be in a situation where we get out of the time skip and Boruto's got full master of being able to use karma, and Boruto's got that eye awakened. There was clearly an eye there. Now, I know people have debated, oh, that's a Byakugan. And the way that I still push back is when chapter 1 was coming out, it wasn't just fans here in the West. There were a lot of Japanese fans as well. People weren't sure what that eye was, since the manga came out before the anime. And the anime didn't change anything in terms of panel by panel and dialogue. But the only difference they made was that the back of Boruto's eye was colored in black. I'll die on the hill and I'll say that I do believe that they just colored in the back of his eye in order to differentiate, because we were told years ago that the anime and manga are parallel stories, and when the anime starts adapting stuff from the manga, it's going to add extra details that the manga doesn't cover. Nowhere did he say that the manga and anime were going to be completely different continuities. That's not the case. The parallel stories are meant to buy time to keep the anime from overtaking the manga. But at the end of the day, the two stories still reach the same narrative junction. And the fact that the Jougan's been mentioned so many times before and we've actually seen it, and it was adapted panel by panel from the manga into the anime frame by frame. And we know based off of the statement made back in 2017 or 18, they make it a point to make sure that they don't change the characters and do something that's going to fundamentally alter and differentiate between the anime and manga. When it looks like they get to that point, when Kodachi was the writer for the story, they would bring Kodachi in to oversee it. And you also had another editor that was brought in specifically in case something like that happened. A great example being Sarda having a 3-tomo when she fought against Boro in the manga. The anime only had her with a 2-tomo. One of the lead writers for the Boruto anime stated that they have a plan for Sarda's 3-tomo, which means that was signed off on. Because otherwise, that is a drastically different variation of the story, because you're changing the dojutsu outright altogether. And that's been something they've been very cognizant of from the very beginning. You can tell parallel stories. The anime can flesh out scenes from the manga. It can even restructure scenes like we saw in the Naruto and Sasuke versus Jougan battle and the Naruto and Sasuke versus Ishiki battle, and even the fallout from that. But all the main points of the characters have to remain the same. You cannot change the character's DNA in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And when you get to that point to where there is a change made, it has to be signed off on by the manga team. But ultimately, they get back to the same story point. Sarda is going to have a 3-tomo like she does in the manga. The anime is just going a different route to get you there. So getting back to Boruto's Jougan, I do think that narratively, this is something that if they choose to go this route and you do the revival, all your options are there right on the table because there's so much we don't know about that eye. It is one of those things where I'm going to be interested to see if they go that route. I think that the layup is right there. Again, because if you bring Boruto back any other way, it's got to be a life for life jutsu. There's nothing else that can bring him back. Even Edo Tensei, that's still a life for life because you are sacrificing somebody else in order to revive Boruto. However, I want to know from you guys, how do you guys feel about the possibility of a Jougan revival for Boruto? On a scale from 1 to 10, I'm going to give this one a 6. I'm not 100% on board, but I do think that from a narrative perspective, this is definitely something that can work. But as always, guys, like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.